the election, what do you think that senatorial aspirants could do to maybe move their way up into the competitive zone or even move themselves up into the top 12? And I think especially we might want to focus on those in the 10 to 19th place competitive zone, which is, as it is named, highly competitive. And I think it will really come down to a close vote share come May 9th.
Definitely. I think that the key for candidates at this point in time, with less than 2 months to go, is to find a way to differentiate themselves from the other candidates in their quote unquote peer group. If you consider the debates, if you consider, for example, the case of Luke Espiritu, Carl Balita, they were able to, borrowing the parlance from sports, they were able to pop off in a venue, and that gave them a burst of popularity. The, a lot of this has to do with the virality of the content that they were able to put out in a decently viewed kind of event, and a lot of it has to do with the depth of the content that they are offering. I think that those kinds of debates are venues in which candidates can provide voters with something compelling. And unlike in presidential venues or vice presidential venues, senatorial candidates have more leeway in pushing for more drastic reforms because they aren't particularly tied down to one side or the other. So, as was the case with Lucas Espiritu, I think he even went so far as to say outright that abortion uh, should be the choice of women. And if you consider the past several months, no candidate for president or vice president has openly voiced that kind of opinion.
It's
So I think
something
that's
completely new, and it's honestly
something new, something
extremely
interesting,
controversial, especially in our
something
context. So,
controversial. Correct. So while it may turn off a lot of voters, right? While it may turn off a lot of voters, if you consider the calculus for a senatorial candidate, you don't need 50%.
yeah,
You don't
right.
need the majority of voters to choose you. Historically speaking, you would be okay with something like 30%. And if it's a contested election with a more dispersed distribution of voters across candidates, then maybe you can even get away with something a little less than 30%. So controversial, hard hitting kinds of opinions can prove to be instrumental in senatorial campaign.
Because if they're headline worthy, then they're probably also vote getting somehow, right?
Correct. I think it's also important to point out that uh, we can see the inverse of that argument when you look at established senators or senators seeking re-election or senators seeking to return to the Senate. They are more moderate. They are more play it safe. So I think that new names have this sort of freedom that older names do not have.
Mm, yeah.